Phil, welcome to the Local Agent, mate. I'm really grateful you came on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've been with REMAX for quite a while, 15 years?
Yeah, it'd be about 15 years now. I've been working for Extreme Realty, or what was Extreme Realty, for coming up to about, I think it would be about 17 years.
Yeah, okay.
And then we merged into REMAX. So yeah, it'd be about 15 years at REMAX.
Yeah. So how did you get into real estate? If you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, you know.
Yeah, look, I back in the UK, I moved here from the UK in 2007, and I worked in property management, predominantly student accommodation back in England. So coming to Australia, I had a couple of paths which I thought I'd go down. One of them was possibly the police, because all my family back in the UK, or they're police or fire, or pushing it out into real estate rather than doing the property management side. I thought maybe give it a go at the sales. So
nice.
That was the first job I applied for here, and I guess
you never looked back.
And I never looked back, I guess. Yeah.
And were you in a team straight away, or did you just?
Yeah, kind of. I started off working for another company, and people back then said, you know, maybe get yourself a job as a PA, working with an experienced agent to pick up, you know, a bit of experience. And coming from the UK, I didn't know much about real estate. In Australia, it's a whole different system, and just the basics were new to me. So I ended up working for an old chap, being a PA, and as much as it wasn't much fun back then, I did learn a lot, and I learned, you know, probably what not to do.
Yeah. Okay.
I started off, for the first, I would say, 12 months working as a PA to an agent, and then kind of my pathway, my journey kind of took me into a team environment working with Brett White.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be in a team, or how did you feel about going into a team? Yeah,
I've always loved the idea of a team dynamic.
Obviously, you've got your own team now.
I do, yeah, absolutely. I've always worked within a team, always. I don't know, for me, I just like the idea of that camaraderie, and you know, real estate can be a lonely place, I think, for certainly a lot of newcomers. So working in that team environment, I just think was definitely the way for me, and I wouldn't have it any other way now. I'd always want to keep it that way.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so, were you, when you obviously split off, did you always stay in Butler, or have you ever wanted to sell anywhere else? Or
well, Butler's my bread and butter. You know, when I worked within this team, we had a team of 3, and our office was based in Butler, so it made obviously perfect sense for me to farm that area, and I did that, and I still do that. Coming up to 18 years. Sorry, I'm still, you know, working the Butler area, but I've expanded into a couple of other suburbs. Alkimos is where I live now as well, so that's where I've been putting my focus over the last kind of 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Not forgetting about Butler, but just focusing on, I guess, the area I'm living. It always helps, I think, that if you're living in the area you service, it makes your real estate career a lot smoother, I think. Look, there's definitely places I'd love to, you know, branch out into. You know, don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, at the weekend I was driving down, you know, through Iluka down to North Beach, and you see all these beautiful suburbs, and I don't know, part of me thinks one day that's kind of, you know, where I want to be heading towards those more affluent places. But
do you think it's hard to change suburbs though after you've become such a household name in one?
Yeah, definitely. I think I guess the suburbs I work in now will never leave me. I think you going into a new suburb, you've definitely got to have a strategy, got to have a plan, and I think, you know, with, you know, sales under my belt and a good reputation, that's definitely gonna help me get to where I want to be. But it's not easy. I think too many people go into it, too many agents go into it thinking it's just going to happen, and a bit like anything in life, unless you're prepared to work hard and you know, kind of you know, give it everything, then you're probably not going to get past the first hurdle, you know. Yeah.
Would you recommend agents focus on the patch, or do you reckon they just need to hit the phones and call everybody that they can? For example, if they just got a database and they've got 5 suburbs and they're just trying to call as many people as they can each day, each week, do you think that's beneficial, or is it
for
better
me
to just focus on one patch?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the scattergun approach for me it's short-lived. I think, you know, if you're gonna want a career in real estate, you've got to have, you know, your patch. You've got to have somewhere to start. You've got to put that focus. You know, real estate, you've got to put a lot of money, time and money into what you do. So you're better off focusing on an area. And I say it to any newcomer coming into the industry: pick an area and have a little think about what area, if you've got the option, think about what area that you're going to go into before you start prospecting in it. You know, just have a look at what the competition, have a look at what the demographic is. You know, when I first started in real estate and being a newcomer, if I was to put myself out into, I don't know, kind of North Beach or Hillary's or whatnot, I would have been eaten alive. You know, I think you got to look at certain things like your age as well. You know, just I think if I'm trying to influence and assist sellers, and I'm a kid just come out of school, or you know
and
what I mean,
is $4 million,
and the house is a $4 million property, I think there's a lot of sellers who will, kind of just think about maybe you're not the right agent for the job because you don't have the life skills, you don't have the experience. So I just think picking the right suburb at the very beginning is really important. It's detriment to your success.
Yeah, for sure. Do you reckon, in terms of, you know, being in the industry for a little bit now, are you still prospecting yourself, or is it more just all warm?
Look, I think now most of my business is typically repeat business and referrals, but I just don't think you can ever stop prospecting. You just can't do it, you know, whatever way you look at it, whether it's, you know, kind of leaflet drops or door knocking or, you know, like cold calling, whatever you do, I think you've got to have something in place. You can't just stop because things change over time, and technology, evolution, all of this, everything changes. You can't just stop and stand still and expect it to come to you.
That's what another question I was going to ask is, what do you reckon has been the biggest change you've seen in the last 15 years in real estate?
Look, geez, the demise of the newspaper. I remember that was a real ball ache in terms of as far as admin goes, like sorting out newspaper, you know, kind of adverts was just time consuming. So that's something that you just, you don't see a lot of these days. I think to some degree, you know, even, you know, kind of the door knocking, it's time consuming. For me, doing the door knocking when I first started out was more of an initiation for getting into the industry. You know, pounding the pavement, being seen in your farm area is a good thing, and I think any agent should definitely experience that. But I think for me to be doing that in my stage of the career, of my career, I think it's just probably, you know, kind of I've been there, done that, and you know, it's just that, again, the time. So I think social media is definitely the way forward. That's been the biggest change over the last kind of 10 years, you know, Facebook adverts, and I mean, Facebook is classed as old now. It's TikTok crazy, and all these things, and some of them I choose not to be part of. Maybe I should, but I think, you've got to go with what you're comfortable with, really.
And staying true to yourself as well.
Yeah, staying true to yourself, absolutely. But I think the biggest change, certainly more recent, is social media.
For sure. What do you reckon has been your biggest challenge in your career?
Biggest challenge? I mean, I think the first 5 years was the biggest challenge, getting yourself established. You know, it's not all milk and honey in this industry. You don't, you know, kind of, you've got to earn your money. And, unless you're prepared to go the distance, I think that's where a lot of agents fail. I think they just kind of, you know, you've got to be able to put money into this industry as well. 10% goes towards advertising and whatnot. So you've got to have income. Otherwise, it just makes it really difficult. So that was probably the hardest. There's a lot of rejection as well. Being you got to.
Do you think that's why the turnover's so high in real estate for like new associates and new agents?
I think it's definitely it contributes towards it, but I also think bad training as well. You know, I've been lucky that I've been working in the same company now for 15, 16, 17 years, surrounded by really good people, good mentors who have put good systems in place. So, I think I was definitely one of the lucky ones. I got to work with my licensee in a team, and that was almost a case of, well, if he's failing, I'm failing, and if I'm failing, he's failing. So we had a really good setup. I'm really grateful to how I started out in the industry. After the first couple of years, and so I think it comes down to who you're around, the support you get, and the training within the company you work for. So many agents I know who started out in real estate, they didn't last much more than a year. Good friends of mine now who give it a go, but I just look back and think, geez, if you were in the right company and if you were had the right backing, you could have gone further. You could have gone further.
Do you have anyone in your personal life or work that you look up to? I've got a few people I look up to. Brett White being the main one. He was kind of prepared to give me an opportunity. When certain people said you were never going to make it as a real estate agent, Brett was the one who gave me an opportunity to prove that I could. So he's definitely one of my kind of I guess one of the people I'd look up to. Yeah. And being quite a successful rep and being busy, have you been burnt out much? And how do you cope with that besides alcohol?
Oh man, that's the one thing, that's
and it's never ending, because if it's something that you don't manage or try and get on top of, you can really burn yourself into the 100%.
Ground. Yeah, that's one thing I'm definitely guilty of, getting the right balance, kind of work balance. The job consumes you. So anyone going into this thinking it's a part-time job or a 40-hour week job, I guess it depends how much you want out of it, though. Some people are happy to go in there, do 30, 40 hours a day. It comes down to, what your ambitions are and what your goals are. Mine has always been to, strive to be as good as I can in something I love doing. So burnout, it does happen. I guess what I'm trying to do is, trying to get that balance right, have a few more holidays and, delegate, to the right people within the team. So, it's... slowly getting there, but I'm 18 years in and I still haven't got that bit right. So
how many weeks are you trying to get off a year?
I think realistically, if I could get 3 weeks off in a year, maybe 4 weeks, I've done pretty well. I'm a high turnover agent, so it's the work does consume you, but I'm pretty comfortable if I can get 3 or 4 weeks in a year. Normally Christmas is about the time where you can down tools a little bit. So, do
you think you'd perform better if you had an extra couple of weeks off in the year?
Good question. Maybe I would. I just need to.
It's hard to put them down, isn't
it? It is, yeah, because
you're when the face of it all, aren't you? So
that's exactly right. Yeah, the phone never stops. Even on your day off, the phone still rings and stuff. And I find myself, I'm one of these kind of just not even an agent people who just likes to get things done. Deal with it as it comes up. Don't push it, till tomorrow, because chances are tomorrow's going to get busy. Yeah. So
is that one of the reasons you think you are so successful? Is that there's other agents who would forget about things and not get things done, and the fact that you do get on top of it shows that you care?
Oh, look, it's nice to say I'm successful, I guess, to some degree. People might.
From my point of view, definitely, mate. You're definitely someone I aspire to be like in terms of, both inside and outside of work. So
thanks, man. Thanks. No, look, it's hard work. It really is. I'm driven. Always have been. I found a job I love to do. So I'm definitely. As far as I don't like to put anyone down or kind of compare myself, but one thing I will say is look, my drive to be as good as I can be. And obviously, we're in sales. We've got a competitive streak.
What made you so competitive, do you reckon?
I think it's just in me. Even as a kid, playing computer games, I wanted to win every time. When I was playing rugby, football, you just want to win. That's the thing. I hate losing. Hate losing. I'm competitive, but I'm a good loser. But I'll do my best to try and win the game.
For sure. Perfect, mate. Well, look, talking about Butler beforehand, I'd love to dive into a couple of sales. It's just a segment that we've got just to explore, a couple of properties,
Sure.
the good, the bad, the ugly, obviously. I'm sure these are going to be a couple of good ones in terms of their sale price in the suburb
Been a few
as well.
sales. Yep.
Starting off with Tobermory Crescent in Butler, number one.
Number one, Tobermory. Yep.
Yeah. So obviously, how did you meet the sellers? Were they just repeat clients?
They were actually. Yeah. A lady called Avril and her son Stephen. They I sold a couple of properties for them, and always kept in touch with them. So I think they built that house together. It was a mother and a son, and they built this big, beautiful home. I think it's about 400 square meters to live in, granny flat, and it was an immense home. And for years, I drive by it and think, geez, one of these days, kind of if it ever sell that, I'd be keen to have a look through there. And as I said, just always kept in touch, more so with Avril, and when it came around to selling it, they give us a call. I walked through the home. I have to say, obviously the market's been pretty good, so they chose the right market to sell in, and we marketed it really well, and we sold it for over $1 million. That was Butler's first $1 million property, and one of my nice little claim to fame is I sold Butler's first $1 million home. It was great, and it was just a really good team performance. Over the years, my marketing has definitely evolved. So when I got that one on the market, I was really, really proud of how we, the strategy we used, the marketing, package. We went above and beyond on that. So, we were a bit nervous. It was marketed or as advertised from, I think, 9:49, and I remember the home open vividly. It was a solid home open, and we actually had around 6 or 7 offers, and 3 of them hit over $1 million. Which kind of trying to keep your excitement in the middle of a home open when somebody's giving you an expression of interest with $1 million on it. Is pretty hard to do, really. I've never seen that kind of money in Butler. So it was sold, and the new buyers bought it. Beautiful home, and I think certain things made it $1 million property. The finish of it, and the fact that it had this granny flat in there, which in this day and age, multi-generational living and whatnot, that kind of things, kind of like almost, it's like gold dust to get one of them. And it was a really, really good sale. From that, the son went on to build a house, but I actually sold Avril another house as well. Her little journey continues, and it was really nice helping those guys out.
Do you think agents don't look after their sellers enough? They often will try and, they'll sell their house and they'll be super grateful for the business, but then they'll be forgotten about because they've done a deal with them.
Look, I think, it's not like, I guess, when a deal is, when a home is settled and whatnot, I guess we don't harass sellers, So looking after sellers is one thing, and just staying in touch, whether it be the odd phone call or you pass by them in the street or you see them in the local coffee shop, just remembering their face. Do you know what I mean? So, they she would have received emails from me and stuff like that. So in terms of do right by the sellers, I think, from a real estate agent point of view, it's all about just kind of making sure that the previous deal I had with them went smoothly, So if you can get that bit right and people, kind of finish up on really good terms, then the repeat business will come back to you. So, look, I think some agents just wait until the sold sticker's on the board, and all of a sudden the service levels kind of, drop. They dip, exactly right. So for me, right to the very end of any transaction, I try to go above and beyond and just make them feel like they're, kind of, it's one of the biggest things they're ever going to do, buy a house or sell a house, So just make sure the transaction is smooth and seamless.
Well, that first $1 million sale in Butler is going to segue quite nicely into another sale you had. 146 Bennenden Avenue.
Yeah, amazing.
Please tell us about that one. That's impeccable.
Yeah, so I guess off the back of number one Tobermory, I got a call from a seller who had been monitoring the property. It had just settled, it had just gone under unconditional, and I got a call from a lovely couple in Butler who built this amazing home. In fact, it was a single-story home, and they converted it to a 2-story. And it was almost like it was weird. It was like an event for Butler that everybody in the surrounding area knew when this second story just appeared on top of this house. So it was almost like, I know 146 Benedon, it's the one that's got the 2-story. And I remember giving that family what I call a mystery gift basket. I remember driving past and go, wow, that house looks amazing. And I sent them a nice little gift basket to say, hey, congratulations, you've built a beautiful home there. I drove past and saw the conversion. Just want to say well done. And, the house looks amazing. And thanks for, thanks for keeping our neighbourhood looking nice in terms of presentation. And I forgot about that. I forgot that was like 10 years prior. And when she called me up and she said, I don't know if you remember us, you gave us a gift basket. I was like, there we go. And she said, look, the reason why we're calling is we've been monitoring number 1 Tobermory, and we saw the price you put on it, and we were curious whether you actually managed to sell it for the price, which was $950. And I obviously went in to tell her that we actually sold it over $1 million, and she was gobsmacked. I said I had 3 offers over $1 million, and she was like, I want you to come around and list my property. So I went round there and, walked through the property, did the appraisal, got on really well with them, lovely English couple who were close to where I was from in the UK, funnily enough. And the next thing, I was listing it up, and we put that property on. I remember asking them what their expectations are. I said to these guys, what were you hoping for? And she said, look, if we can get anywhere, above $1 million or $1 million, that would be fantastic. We just can't believe that properties in Butler sell for $1 million.
In that for $1 million, isn't it? People have that in their head.
Exactly right. And it wasn't meant like there was no kind of like bragging there. They weren't trying to like, we want to be the highest selling house.
They just hoped that if they could get that,
absolutely,
that'd be nice.
Absolutely. So I said, look, let's price it. I think we priced it from 989,000. And that home open was insane. I actually had so many inquiries on the property that I actually brought in a third, one of my colleagues as well. So there was 3 of us opening the property. There was myself in the main living area. I had my team member Maria working in the granny flat, and I had a colleague of mine signing people in at the door. Wow. It was that busy. I think we had something like around about 62 groups through the property. So probably over 100 people came through. So it was buzzing. We had 13 offers on the property, and I think only one of them was shy of $1 million. We sold the house for $1.2 million or so. Yeah. You got the price there?
I think it was 1.15.
Oh, 1.15 was it? Okay, well there you go. I'm better than I thought.
That's always nice. Oh no, it was 1.12. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. I'm not impeccable.
That good. No, mate. Anything over $1 million like that's just crazy. Yeah. So that's really good.
It was amazing.
You know your property quite well. You remembered the sale price. So.
Yeah. It was definitely for me the best house I've ever sold for numerous reasons, and. Yeah, again, just to be able to say I've, I guess, sold Butler's top-selling home of all time. It's a nice little accolade to celebrate. Do
you think there'll be another home that will top that in Butler, or is there any that you know of that could reach that?
I guess you can never say never, really.
Yeah.
I
know if the market continues as well, that's obviously a big factor
right.
in it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. It'll be hard to beat it because that one had everything, I feel, but certainly not impossible. It really, like you said, it really depends how long this market goes on for, and supply and demand is one thing. I think the granny flat was the real golden ticket on that particular. In fact, both properties had granny flats, and I think that made the difference for sure.
Well, your marketing is something that is a standout compared to most agents, and do you think that helps a lot in terms of just marketing and when people see your listings online? Do you think that also helps with just self-promotion as well? Because the way you present even a 3x2 on a cottage on a 225 square meter block, the photos are amazing, the write-up, the labelling of rooms, your attention to details high.
Yep.
And do you think that helps you quite a bit?
100%, yeah. Look, my background is marketing. My mum was an interior designer back in the UK, so getting homes prepared for sale. I always say to my sellers, it doesn't matter whether it's $1 million home or a, kind of a a small 2-bedroom unit, what I want to do is make sure that I've marketed your home to the best of my abilities. So my attention to detail, every single property is different as well. So typically my write-ups is hard because, as you know, you find yourself falling into the trap of writing down the same things and whatnot. But identify the top 3 selling points. Sell it for what it is as well. Don't overcook it. So many agents do terrible write-ups. I look at some of my competition and I think, man, geez, my daughter could have written a better write-up than that, you know. So don't overcook it. You know, identify the top 3 selling points. In terms of the photos, look, the truth is that's definitely something that brings me business. A lot of clients say, you know, you always seem to list all the best ones. Like I'm lucky enough to just inherit all these amazing listings. You've got to work for those. But I think, you know, kind of, you know, marketing over the last, you know, 18 years or so, I look back at some of my marketing when I first started out and I cringe at times because, I just look back and go, what was I doing? But back then, it was probably more than what all my competition was doing, you know? So,
You're quite innovative with what you do. You're always like, even, you know, 10 years ago with doing digital staging and the rest of it, you're always pushing the envelope to try and do the best marketing.
Exactly right. Try and make your properties stand out, you know? I remember having one of the best compliments I ever got was I sold this house in Butler, and the owner, they were English as well. It's like Little Britain, isn't it? But I remember getting an email from this the owner's father back in the UK. He sent us this lovely email saying, I just want to commend you on your marketing. I've just read my daughter's, the write-up you've done for my daughter's property. He said, in England, we don't do anything like this. He said, you're selling the dream. And he said, and I wish more agents would do what you do. In terms of like, the labeling of the photos, because that can confuse buyers if they're looking photos all over the place and stuff. So just that little a bit of, you know, kind of attention to detail. And what a compliment. A guy from another continent had taken the time to read a write-up that I'd done and, you know, gives us this 5-star.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. And I have other, you know, kind of buyers, you know, who'll go, we can go through the photos, we don't even know who the agent is, so we haven't checked that bit out, but we already know it's your style. So I have a certain style of how I market my properties, which, again, always trying to change up as well, always trying to, you know, stay in front of the game.
A bit controversial in a hot market. Do you recommend selling off market?
Look, I think that definitely comes down to the client, what the client's motivation is. I mean, last year I sold pushing up to about 100 properties, just short of 100 properties, and I reckon there would have been 30 that I'd sold off market. You know, some sellers hate the idea of, you know, home opens. Some sellers, you know, motivation is greater. Maybe they want to sell quicker. They need the job done, you know, pretty rapidly, for example. But the thing for me is when you're selling off market properties, it doesn't mean you're selling them cheap. In fact, 99% of the time, I'm hitting well over what we're expected on the price anyway. If the house hasn't come to market, particularly because the market has been so buoyant and buyers, especially East Coast investors over the last couple of years, as you know, they want properties, and a lot of them are prepared to pay top dollar if they can get it without facing the competition. So I reckon every single one of my off-market sales, the sellers walked away rubbing their hands because they haven't had to pay money on marketing. You could argue that, you know, have you given every chance to, you know, get the top dollar? But, you know, when you're appraising properties and, you know, you got a really good understanding of where the price is sitting and still hitting over those prices, you know, the seller's pretty happy. So
back to your, obviously you like to present homes beautifully. How do you deal with sellers who don't want to do anything? They want to sell it as is. Look, I feel, mate, I'm, you know, too busy. I've got 3 kids. Like, we just need to get it photos on. You know, how do you handle that?
I'll always do my best. I believe, you know, kind of like you look at display homes, they always sell for top dollar, and I will always try to the best of my ability to convince the seller to get it as good as we can get it. I always say to sellers, give me 110% for the photo shoot, because essentially that's what's going to get the people through the door. So I will always do my best to convince sellers to do the work. I have a team of trades behind me who I, at short notice, can get them through. With the emergence of Realty Assist, there is money there where sellers can actually get essentially a short-term loan to get the work done, to try and get them the higher price. So with those like tools, kind of at their exposure, they can get money there. And if it's gonna make them more money, most sellers will listen in. I think if you can deliver the message with a bit of conviction and say, look, you can sell it for this price and we can sell it quick, or you can do a little bit more and we could potentially hit that price. Most sellers will look at it and go, geez, for a little bit of hard work, do the graft, get it done at the beginning, get it right, and let's get the top dollar. Let's get best price. It blows my mind when, I do appraisals and list the property and the seller says the other agent didn't even suggest any of this, and I just think, God, that's our job as an agent, just work out what the strategy is that's best for the client. If you get somebody who just says, I've got to sell it as is, then you've got to educate them. Well, that's fine, but expect this kind of price if we're selling on an as is basis, so yeah.
Wow, yeah. In terms of obviously selling close to 100 properties last year, have you got a few goals in mind for 2025 and what you're striving for? Or
well, for me, I always try and improve every year. Things are tightening up. I think any agent will say to you at the moment the biggest challenge is getting listings at the moment. I guess I'm fortunate enough to, get a lot of repeat business and whatnot, so that certainly helps. But the way I see it is, if I can, throughout the year, maybe better where I was last year, and it doesn't have to be in terms of how many properties I've sold, etc. It's maybe just, bringing in another team member or, kind of getting some really good exposure for my team and my brand or something like that, doing 2 or 3 things in a year which I can say that was brilliant, then you're always improving, and that's what I try and do, just always improve. The market will determine how successful my year is going to be, but we've also got influence on what we do there.
So what's in your pipeline?
100%, yeah. And then you got to, if things are slowish, then you got to go, okay, so how am I going to, how am I going to change things up? What am I going to do to change my, my future? And so look at all angles. Do I start marketing a little bit more in open up the fishing net to another suburb, or do I start putting even more marketing out there? And
do you feel that the amount of marketing that you do across, say, for example, Butler Alchemist, then drops in saturation when you then go across to, say, another suburb?
No, not for me, because once I've got those already in place, I try and keep that consistent. That doesn't stop. Okay. If I choose to push it out to another area, for example, then that's just adding to what I'm already doing. I never stop. I never go backwards in that. I always keep make sure that everything's covered in my bread and butter suburbs. So yeah. What's
the first thing you think a new agent should spend on in terms of marketing for themselves?
Marketing for themselves, yeah. Look, I definitely look for stuff like flyers. It's the same thing. It's the same real estate package. You get your core flute signs, you get your flyers, you do your tell hundreds, all of those kind of things. I always try and design my flyers a little bit differently to the competition. I got home, I think it was on Friday afternoon, and there was literally 10 real estate brochures in my letterbox, mine included. And I looked at it, and I always like to go, compare, how do they look, and that's a good idea. Maybe I'll, start looking at, bringing that into some of my designs. But I'm super pedantic about all my marketing. I'm really, again, attention to detail. I probably spend too much time on a lot of my branding and stuff as well. It has to be right. I can't rush things to get them just for the sake of getting them out, and probably to my own detriment. Sometimes these things take a little bit longer, but I've forgotten the original question. What's the
what would you recommend?
Oh yes,
for
a new agent, I just basically have enough marketing at least for 12 months, as in flyer drops.
Yeah.
Maybe I do an A4 NTR and also maybe do a DL at the same time.
Yeah.
Get around about 30 signs out there, core flute signs, and make sure you get them out. Look at social media platforms, invest a little bit of money here and there on everything. Okay. Nowadays I have a lot of like merchandise, branded stuff made up. I put myself out there. It's funny when I always ask potential sellers at the point when they're booking in the appraisal, what prompted you to call me? And when a seller says, you're everywhere, that's a good thing from my point of view. They say I can't miss you, you're all over the place. So in my farm areas, it's really important to be seen. Certainly stuff like sponsorship as well. I've just sponsored I'm sponsoring 2 local cricket team and also an AFL team as well. Both.
Surprised you didn't get a football team in there.
Soccer team would be good. But I think there's only so much
presence in the community.
Having presence, doing like what you're doing here, and meeting local, kind of business owners and stuff like that. It's really important. I think from a newcomer's point of view, meeting the right people and just give back to the community as much as you can in the early days. Start being seen, because all of these people will talk, and if you've got a way of putting yourself out there in a positive and friendly way, then I think people want to help.
Awesome. Well, look, wrapping things up, I'm going to just be selfish, and because I'm going off by myself, obviously, as you know, this year, been with who used to be in a team with yourself, Brett White, the licensing director, which is great. I'll be having a chat with him pretty soon, and what's your best piece of advice for me going off by myself this year?
Absolutely. I think you already kind of put the groundwork in place, if you know what I mean. You picked an area, you farmed the area really well. Going out by yourself, the one thing I would say is, don't try and cut corners. There's no such thing as cutting corners in real estate. Go out there and just give it 100%. Just work really hard. Stick to the basics. This is where so many, I think, new agents get it wrong. Every new agent wants instant success. So if you've just paid money to put a load of flyers out and nothing comes of it, don't give up on that. It doesn't mean, that it's not going to happen on the next time, or, door knocking, for example. There's a lot of disappointment, especially in your first few years. So get used to that. If you have missed out on a listing, shrug it off, move on to the next. It's the best thing you can do. Even nowadays, it pisses you off to some degree, but you got to let these things go, because they ain't coming back. So just do the basics, do it consistently, and that's the thing. One thing I'm even today, 18 years into the industry, I keep doing the basics, get the signboards out, and there's a lot of time where you think, I can't be bothered. What's the point? There is a point. You just got to keep doing the consistent things and do them well. It makes me laugh when I see agents come in and they give it a go. They're all pumped up. 2 weeks later, they haven't got a listing out of it, and they give up. And I see it all the time. So from my point of view, perseverance. That never give up attitude.
Perfect. Phil, I'm really grateful that you came on, mate. Thanks so much.
No problem.
I'm sure lots of people get a little bit out of it. I've got a lot out of it. So thanks very much, mate. I'm sure we'll grab a coffee or a beer soon.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.